there is political indoctrination towards this religiosity at the hands of these Islamic groups, which push the country towards becoming a theocracy. And of course, this discourse affects many people, and they are influenced by it. Religious symbolism in Egypt is becoming higher than before. Like, for example, I remember when I was younger, there were very few muhajjaba women, you know, the hijab. Now, I think the majority of women in Egypt would have the hijab, and the minority would be in the European dress. Until a few years ago, there were very few munaqqaba women. The munaqqaba is this one, the niqab, only where the eyes appear, or the eyes of a woman appear only. There were very few. Now there are at least hundreds of thousands of munaqqaba women. But the muhajjaba women are in millions, of course, if not tens of millions. And this is the religious symbolism. This is the religiosity. This is culture. This is not necessarily politics. And I have here to make a distinction of politics and culture, but at the same time acknowledge the juxtaposition of the two. This, for example, women who are dressed in the hijab are not necessarily voters of the Islamic groups when they stand for elections. No, a muhajjaba woman can vote for the ruling party, for a liberal party, or even for a left-wing party. This is not the only prospect that, since she has Islamic symbolism in her behavior and dress, she must belong to the Islamic political current. Not necessarily. But this could change. This could change, and the culture can become politics, and I speak about this when I come to expectations. Let me still emphasize the manifestations and say that religious symbolism is very high with such manifestations. Like the dress, like the language, the discourse in daily life, referring things to religious teaching. Years ago, for example, if you ask a woman, why don't you have the swimming suit to jump into the sea in summertime, for example, she would say to you, I am maksuf, I'm shy, or something like this. But now if you ask her, she would say it's haram. She would give you a different answer. That is the religious discourse to which I refer and by which many people are influenced now. Maybe the same woman, actually. I know some of my friends in the good old days, women in particular, because women really bear a lot of this symbolism more than men. They were dressed in European dress, some of them were in mini jupe and mini skirt, and now they are in the hijab. Maybe partly this is a function of their getting older, but it's also the influence of the general climate of the country. So I would say that the general cultural climate in the country is a theocratic one. I can of course call it Islamic, I can call it religious in the broad sense, but the minute I call it theocratic, it means we are coming closer to interpreting or translating religion into politics. This is what pushes me towards treating it as a theocracy in culture, which can become theocracy in politics, and this is the fear and danger. While I have no problem with Egyptians being good Muslims, good Christians, devoutly religious people, no problem, but of course I have a problem if this becomes the way to a theocratic state, a theocratic political system. Hence I have to become a fighter against such prospect, which we are actually. So this is the manifestation. Not only in culture, but also manifestations in the state structure and the state discourse and the state expression of itself. While it speaks many times as a modern state, it presents itself as a secular state without using the word secularism. It's not being used, but it's a de facto secular state. Well, we don't speak about laïcité, but there is laïcisation. Why we don't speak about secularism, but there is secularization in effect. So the Egyptian state is a de facto secular state, but at the same time, it's a de facto and de jure theocratic state. Such manifestations can be found, number one, in the constitution of the country, which refers to the state religion and Islam. Of official. But this can be interpreted in symbolic terms. But there is another stipulation in the Constitution, an article which is number 2 actually in the German Constitution, which makes the Islamic Sharia, the legal system, as the principal source of legislation in the country. This is the most clear-cut bit of Egypt being a semi-theocracy. You have to go to the Islamic Sharia first, no matter what you legislate for. If you legislate for labor unions, for naval law, for international trade agreements, not only for personal code and family code, criminal code, civil code, whatever, you have to go to Islamic teaching first. This is the most important part of the theocratic element in the structure of the Egyptian state.